This is actually normally Nazgul's office.
Yeah.
So that's quite cool as well. Anyway, let's not wait any longer. Let's go ahead and enjoy into the first of the 6 best of 5s that we have for you guys in store today. All lower bracket today. So if you guys are looking forward to upper bracket, that's going to happen tomorrow. Today we're going to play our first 4 matches of the lower bracket, and then obviously the winners of those matches as well. Top left side of Stargazers, we're looking at the main base of the reigning GSL Code as champion, and it's been a long time since you could say that about any Protoss player. This is Dragon Phoenix Gaming's herO.
And in the top right, playing for Onside Gaming, the runner-up of the most recent GSL, he is Maru.
I just spotted him while he was getting some water. I was like, Maru, how are we feeling? He's like, bad. I was like, oh, come on, you're going to win, right? He's like, no. I was like, but I'm predicting you to win. He's like, oh, thank you, thank you.
Oh, that was nice of you.
But he said that he wasn't ultra confident. Then again, that's the Maru that we've known for like the last 8 or 9 years. So I don't really look too much into whatever Maru says. I feel like his actions in-game often speak a whole lot louder than he does.
Sometimes, yes, but I mean, maybe he really did take that GSL finals kind of surprising momentum, starting off so fast for herO. I don't want to call it a slap because there's a little bit more to it than that, but it just really, it felt like herO came out with a slap ready and Maru was still looking to shake hands. So he was just like off kilter the entire time. So he might be thinking about just how tough it is to go up against herO and the way that he builds momentum. He's a tricky player. He's got a lot of builds. He's a vicious player, lethal player. He's going to kill you when he has a chance. And that perhaps is the flip side, like part of his weakness. Again, that overconfidence did play against him a little bit, but just generally herO is a very intimidating player to go up against, and not just because he is the GSL champion.
Yeah, absolutely love that you bring that up. Like setting the tone for a big best of 7, or in this case a best of 5, is very important. And Maru probably had all sorts of plans for Blackburn back then. Bam, Zealot in his face, Adept in his face, Adept in his face, Oracles follow up. And at that point, he knew what was happening. He pretty early on figured out what was happening, but he couldn't really do anything about it anymore because he opened up with Marine into a reactor, into another barracks. So he had to hope for herO to mess up, and herO just didn't really mess up. And that's why I think today it's going to be very fun to see how the first 4 or 5 minutes of these games play out. And I do think it's already worth mentioning that Maru has built his command center on the high ground here, going Marine, Reactor, into Factory, into a high ground CC. Not totally necessary, but I guess just at all costs, he does not want to have another false start to a big series.
Yeah, apparently. And he's not going to go ahead and take Stargazer's back base with that, which would have absolutely been an option. Does require you to mine out some minerals in the back there, so a little less ideal economically even than a usual, I guess, high ground command center. But I mean, I guess kind of, it might work out the same, actually. I've done the math on that one. But the point is, now you, in the future, have that base to take potentially. Just keep in mind to have some spotters over there in case the game does go to 3-4 bases. Warp Prisms become a huge problem. We already got a little bit of a scuffle in the middle of the map as the Hellion does kill the probe, but then gives up its life. So what has Maru scouted from herO so far?
2 Stalkers.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, there you go.
But that is a little bit of a tell in and by itself, right? Because it's not 2 Adepts, it's not 3 Adepts, and that makes it a little bit more likely that this is a Twilight opening rather than a Stargate, because you don't normally make multiple Stalkers and then also, surprise, here's an Oracle. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. That's not the way that Protoss players normally do it, because it's all a little bit gas intensive in the early game.
It's going to be a 4-gate from herO. I mean, something that you would like to know to set up your units as well positioned as possible. Maru is getting into units that do help against the eventual Blink Stalker push, those tanks already being produced, but we have one cheeky medevac going into the main.
I like it a lot, because at this point, herO's probably like, man, this is going so well. I'm absolutely loving this. There's no bunker. You're going to struggle with this. There is 1 Stalker at home, but having 7 or 8 Marines in your main base, even if they don't have stim, can become very problematic. A Stalker gets warped in there. Maybe Maru could have gone for that one. What is important for Maru is that he's decisive, and he's like, I'm just a little bit too far away from the probes, does not want to give up all these units, but at the same time he's moving out with a few more Marines. I love that herO still has that probe, by the way, at the Zalnaga Watchtower, because that's going to give him the heads up that the extra units are coming in as well. But I have the feeling that Maru can stay around too long, because this is not just 2 gateways, and Protoss is greedy, let's go up to 3 bases. No, this is herO with 4 gateways and Blink done.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm quite worried about this. I saw the faster tank production. I was like, could he actually do a push? Well, he could, but then it would be a bit blind. He doesn't actually know what herO is setting up for. And herO, I mean, seeing this, just going to go ahead and take as many warp-ins as possible. Yeah, that solo pylon is very concerning. That's half his production, and then some, actually, with the Robo also. Tank does get targeted down at the sacrifice of a few Stalkers, but then you still have so many more to come, and that tank really was the anchor that this push needed to really be scary. Otherwise, it is just Marines without any upgrades. Medevac is going to get the heck out of Dodge, be like, see you later, guys. And that is going to be the end of the push for Maru.
I mean, in a weird way, you could say, like, this is not all that bad for Maru, right? He's only 2 workers behind, and it's 2 base against 2 base. That's stuff that Terran players love. Absolutely, if they actually have Stim, Combat Shield, and +1 on the way. That is not the case at all. Maru is going to be stuck for a very long time, and he's going to have to defend a couple of very fast mobile Blinky boys with slow Marines, and basically just make damn sure that you don't lose any tanks. It was not good enough for Maru. Maru will know that too. He's going to go for a Raven, maybe a tiny bit worried about a Dark Shrine follow-up. We know that's not the case, but these Stalkers could very well be the end of Maru, as that's a 4-red Blink, snipes a tank, snipes a medevac. There is 1 more tank in the back, but yeah, herO can do this all day, and the Protoss players, they got so damn good at just being proper annoying with these Stalkers.
Yeah, I do wonder how herO's going to play this out. 2 tanks once again, and this time really quite well protected by the Sim City. But, oh, they just both on siege at the same time? Yeah. I guess he was thinking it was better to save at least 1. Maybe hoping that will save him at the end of the day. 1 does re-siege. Raven will barely pop out, but the starport's even in trouble. SCV's going to be pulled, and of course they're going to go down as well. And there's no reason for herO not to continue this. He has all the room to play with.
Yep, herO doesn't have to do this. He could have just gone for charge. He could have just gone for a couple of forges, but he's like, nope, I know that I've got all the momentum in the world here. I know that you are tied with your hands behind your back, and I can do this all day. I can move around in your base. My units are fast, and my units have a lot of micro potential, and there is very little that that Maru can truly do about it, as he ends up losing the Raven as well, and things are just going from bad to worse. Kind of feels like we just continued where we picked up at the GSL finals.
It does. It's not as brutal. It's not as much about the, I guess, very, very beginning build orders already throwing Maru for a loop. The High Ground Command Center kind of ensured that. This actually is getting a bit dicey, so I thought maybe we're wrapping this up, but okay, there's still a little bit of a game to play. But regardless, Maru's intent to go for that tank push, I do not think he wanted to be going up against a 4-gate, maybe a 3-gate, definitely a 2-gate for sure, but a 4-gate that was going to not only eagerly defend against that, but then have immediate counter-attack. That's what's really terrible about this for Maru. And even though he holds, he's very battered and bruised.
What do we make of the Forge location over there, Zombie Grove? Did you see it?
The very painful choke it's going to create if Maru pushes down there. Yeah.
Imagine if Maru throws out his scan right now. You also obviously see how many workers does herO already have on the 3rd base, and he sees a Forge there, and he's going to be like, come on, man, really? herO definitely got a bit reckless there towards the end, but he probably feels that he could get away with that because he could actually afford it, and Maru can't really. You want to be careful with all these Stalkers, though, because they're already a bit better than bruised. I don't know. We're going to wipe in Zealots and just going to try to end it. I guess before Stim, all of that would be fine. This does feel like a tiny bit unnecessary, but hey, if it works and you can just go ahead and end the game, why not? The Marines do not have Stim yet, and that makes it very, very difficult to chew through all these Zealots.
Cool little thing with the Immortal there. Probably not really going to break the difference here. I think herO just has too much, but it was cool there. I think you're right. This is one of those things that you look at and you're like, oh, herO, maybe this could have backfired on you, but it was very well timed. All before the upgrades were done. Maru just not really expecting it, having to pull back those Marines awkwardly and slowly as well. And yes, at the end of the day, this is just kind of picking up where we left off, which is herO seemingly just getting the better of the mind games, the build orders.
Yep. I do still want to give herO some compliments, because even though he obviously had all the tools with the 4 gateways and Blink to deal with what Maru was throwing at him, he still handled all of it well. Liberator in the main base, he had 2 Stalkers in position to deal with that. He knew when those tanks and Marines were coming in, so he even picked off a couple of reinforcements. And the moment that tank sieged up for the very first time, he didn't hesitate for a second. He's like, all right, I know that this forward blink is going to hurt a little bit, but if I just take out the tank there, you're never getting my pylon. You're still very far away from my probes. herO did everything right. He obviously had the right build order for it. And yeah, Maru tried to make the best of a very dire scenario, but was not able to turn things around.
I mean, definitely a good point. herO played that out very, very well. A potentially worse Protoss would have been even more surprised by the push, and then with the double whammy of the Liberator, could have actually lost quite a bit. It could have gotten so haphazard. The trades of Stalkers could have been worse, and then the counterattack would have been a little less, right? Maru would have more time to prepare, but now it did go very, very smoothly, about as technically correct as possible, I suppose. And with that, herO does take game number 1. I am really surprised that Maru did that build, though, just in general. Touch on that for a second. I do know that Stargazers can maybe be, I mean, how would you put it, like complicated for a 4-gate? But I do feel like a lot of Protoss players are, especially herO, and maybe not with a 4-gate specifically in this matchup, but herO has been abusing that back natural, being able to blink in there and then walk to the main base in a lot of matchups.
Yep, but herO has also shown tendency to go for very quick storm builds, right, where he does go up to 3 bases quickly, and yeah, he controls the map with a couple of Stalkers, but those are not the Stalkers that are going to blink into a Terra main base to deal damage. So I think Maru just said, all right, Stargazers is not the map that I feel necessarily ultra confident on. I'm going to go ahead and gamble a tiny bit, and perhaps this gamble will pay off in a very big way if herO is greedy. And, well, if it was this scenario, yeah, then it's going to be very difficult, and that's what it turned out to be. Yeah. We'll see. I think this was definitely herO's map choice, I assume. So let's see what the second map is going to be. We're probably moving into like an inside and out, or perhaps moon dance, but I think inside and out would make a lot of sense. And then we'll see if Maru can actually finally have a clean start and find some damage, because I cannot remember the last time Maru had more workers on the map than herO. And I know it's a TVP. That doesn't necessarily happen by default, but once in a while, right? Doesn't a Terran have a great start, Zombie Grub? Don't they sometimes get a Hellion drop or a Widowmine drop, and they actually tie things up?
Now, am I playing the role of the salty Terran or like the correct analysis?
Both.
Salty Terran would be like, no, we never get a good start. Kill 20 probes, not good enough.
All right. Well, I was right on my map choice. I guess we already saw the maps in order earlier, but I forgot about it because I was too focused on the 2 maps that got vetoed. In the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base with the man who has now won 5 out of the last 6 games that these two played against each other on a big stage. Dragon Phoenix Gaming's herO.
In the top right, as the yellow Terran for Onside Gaming, he is Maru.
I do want to point out, by the way, that herO is a phenomenal football player, or soccer,
apparently,
as some people call it. We played a little bit of football on the Wednesday evening. I want to say it's a bad idea. I've been limping for 2 days. Lambo can't really walk either, but I got to say the Koreans, we had Gumio and herO with us. They're both really good. Like, herO is just ridiculously fast. I thought Elazen was going to be by far and away the fastest guy out there because he's running 24/7, as you can see on his Instagram. But herO was damn good and damn fast. And then I was like, okay, but Gumio is going to be a little more like us, right? No, he's also really good. I'm like, oh my god, is there anything these guys can do?
Yeah, exactly. What can herO not do? Yeah, I saw the, I don't know if you took a video of him or someone did, but yeah, he looked fancy. You know, he was like going backwards and stuff, and I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. The Americans, we all decided not to play the football. So I just heard that people got injured. I thought it was quite funny. Fortunately, no one injured any of their hands or arms. No. Which would have been the worst.
That's why we didn't play basketball or something.
There you go. Like, that's why.
We can have foot injuries, but as long as the hands are okay, we'll survive. So herO went for a gateway on the low ground and a Nexus cybernetic score before the Nexus, obviously, because the cybernetic score is done. Yeah. I never quite know what to truly make of it. I feel like it's just personal preference for Protoss players, whether they go for high ground or low ground. I think there are moments where, sure, this works out because it's easier to keep Hellions out of your natural, or if they go for some sort of a multi-prong where you need to worry about the main and natural, this can be a bit easier, but this can also really work against you for slightly later pushes when it comes to like tanks, liberators, and Marines, potentially even a bunker setup. So yeah. I think it's just personal preference.
I think that pretty much sums it up, honestly. And what's, always mindful, I guess, of herO. Is that is he walling off correctly? It's not as problematic in this matchup if he maybe didn't. Because I don't know if we're actually going to Hellions either. 2 Reapers and a Hellion, yes, which the Zealots very awkwardly ran into and just got recalled home. This was herO wanting to get the starts, right? He got the Zealot and then he chronoed the Stalker too, and again, multiple Stalkers and Adepts. That's why the Council's coming up behind this, but yeah, maybe didn't realize Maru was going to already be looking for that.
And one of the downsides, obviously, of building yourself on the low ground is that you can't necessarily keep the Reapers at bay very easily. Maru is going to leave the Hellion behind. Very well done. Good job splitting things up so far. Let's see. We should be able to grab at least 3 probes in total, I'd say. I think maybe the Hellion was able to get one. I love that grenade. We get a second one. We get number 3. Oh. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, it looked like it wasn't going to happen, actually. And the Hellion maybe could have even gotten a 4th, but he prioritized the Reaper micro, which definitely was the right call. So yeah, okay, 3 Reapers and a bit of a scout.
Oh!
It happened. Maru's ahead in workers.
27 against 26. It's been a little while. Maru's off to a pretty decent start. Obviously, did lose a little bit of map control that you normally get out of Reapers and Hellions. And that Orbital is a little bit later than it would have been with some other builds. And now we need to worry about these Stalkers being annoying. So we end up losing at least 1 SCV. There are a couple of Widow Mines, but this is already just phenomenal for herO, as he not only gets a great scout off, he's actually able to do a little bit of a worker damage too. The Zealot could potentially soak up a Widow Mine shot. That's exactly what it does. As we're going to take a look at the first-person view of herO. He's not even looking at the battle.
He already moved on. He was like, yeah, I guess that's fair enough. You know, who would have minds, can't do anything about it. And it looks like they were picked up as well. So he is tracking that. Very cool to see the first person in such a way, like actually first person, seeing how fast they are is always really fun to watch out for. But it looks like that was a bit of a fake. Maru's like, nah, I think we'll be prepared for it. Pulls it back, at least temporarily. I mean, pretty much getting an off timing here would be the better bet, or even just parking it somewhere and waiting a little while.
Maru is still really fond of Ravens in this matchup, eh?
I feel like a lot of the Korean Terrans are, no matter what it is. And we still have them even go up against like Phoenix with it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and unless your name is Maru, I really do not approve of that. It happens too often, and way too often they just end up losing the Raven relatively quickly. But yeah, Maru once more going for the Raven. That Raven had absolutely 0 impact in the previous game, but that game was a bit of a disaster. This game, obviously, that Stalker pressure was annoying, but the start was a lot more promising. You know, look at Stim on the way, +1 on the way. As herO has gone up to 3 bases, and is also firing up a Prism. But this is most likely just the kind of Prism where it's like, let's put 4 Stalkers in it, let's see if I can grab a couple of SCVs, and later on utilize it for some of those Storm drops. As we mentioned, Quick Storm in the previous game, that is a very quick Twilight Council, or excuse me, Temple Archives.
Right, yeah. So this has been something that herO's done fairly frequently, actually. GSL Finals, it happened there, but then his recent GSL group, it also happened, Faster Storm. Because, I mean, it does seem like what also was happening was that there was a decent amount of 2-base SCV pulls for Maru, and then Byun was his other opponent in GSL recently. And it is kind of funny to see that, because basically what wins is Storm, 9 times out of 10. Storm is great to have against an SCV pool. So it feels like this has worked out so well for herO that it's like, yeah, of course you're going to bring this in. And the Terran players are the one that are having like a trouble basically trying to punish it or even play against it in general. Because of course, if you don't SCV pool, you try and play a macro game, then he can actually come after you and do a little bit of a drop action as well. And speaking of which, Widow Mines finally try and get into the natural, which they will. Oh, and they kind of reached. 3 probes.
And the other one hasn't quite fired yet, so we can do a little bit of retargeting. And now herO needs to be very careful with the probes that really want to go back to mining. This is great play by Maru. Even if he only gets a single one in the end, there's a lot of lost mining time here. And now he still look at the workers once more. Maru 45, herO 43.
Yeah.
This is actually the kind of game where maybe Maru does feel like, hey, if I go for an SCV pool, can't I just end it? But I actually think just playing this out in a normal macro-oriented way be totally fine. Because herO is going to have a very tough time dealing with this army. And herO's economy is nowhere near as great as it was in so many of the other games. The Observer did catch a glimpse of the 2 mana packs there.
Yeah, that's really important. But yeah, you're totally right to be talking about the economy. Maru, I mean, even if yes, if he lost everything here, it would absolutely be painful. 1 meta pack is going to go down, but the other one unloads, and triple auto turret will send the Stalkers away. So a bit of a save there on the units. But absolutely, herO actually really needs a slam dunk of an engagement. He is not in a good economic position. I mean, I've been trying to track his chronos a little bit thanks to our updated production tab, and it's been mostly on things that aren't probes. So even without some of the damage he took, it's been a bit painful, maybe not the fastest third base either. Point is, I do feel like he needs something because he also doesn't have upgrades, right? Like he is missing a few tools from a really long macro game PVT. Say it's a lot about right here, right now.
It's gonna be uncomfortable. You know, Maru is knocking on your front door, and you kind of supply like another 3 free supply available, but you'd like a little bit more. That storm was absolutely perfect, though. Very good job there on zoning that towards the north side, expecting Maru to run towards that side. As we blink forward again, does not get enough hits off. I do love the way that Maru has been playing this. Needs to be very careful with the War Prism there, herO that is, because losing that Prism would pretty much be game over. One of the bigger problems for herO here as well, though, is the fact that he does not have a Forge.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, oh, that's okay, because you have Storm. Yeah, Storm is really good in softening up the units, but you also need something to truly kill the units. And I have the feeling that Gateway units without any upgrades are going to have such a hard time in accomplishing that mission.
Exactly. Again, herO not really... If everything went well for Maru, which, by the way, it really isn't, herO is still playing fabulously with the War Prism action, right? Then Maru would just be straight up ahead, really no contest. But a couple of these storms hitting the dead center of the units, a couple of Zealots be finding some tanks that were a little unguarded. No. There you go. Actually picking up the last kill. A little scared of the Wood of Mines. That's what is keeping herO looking very strong. Absolutely, the tools are there, but if they're used perfectly every single time, that's the question. And now the Terran's got Ghosts, so the timing is really sketchy right now for herO.
herO should not try to run up that ramp. That'd be crazy. Like trying to cause a little bit of chaos, maybe poke one time. He obviously doesn't see what we see, but I really hope that once he gets a good idea of what Maru is actually working with, that he understands that attacking here would be complete suicide. And he does, so he's going to drop the double Forge. It's going to take such a long time though before those upgrades kick in. But yeah, if it wasn't for all of those, like, was there a bad storm?
No.
I don't think so, right? They were all great. And that really is what kept herO in that game there, because the lesser Protoss would not have been able to nail every single storm there, and then Maru would have had a lot more confidence to just stay around and potentially take a game-deciding fight.
This actually, I think, is similar to their Cosmic Sapphire game, where the delay on upgrades was rather extreme, but he eventually got that double Forge, and he got into Disruptors. And what was also really, I think, highlighted in those finals was the way that herO was able to control Maru, yes, from the get-go with some build orders and just being the most obnoxious Protoss possible, but then also with a mass Gateway army and Disruptors. He was the one that was almost always pushing into Maru, and Maru had to respond. So if we get there, because Maru is maybe looking to go on the map again, so maybe before Disruptors make an appearance, but if we get to 4, 6 Disruptors, I actually feel like I'm going to be scared for Maru again.
Absolutely, and the first 2 are already on the way. We're working on Observer speed there as well. Now, we have a Raven now. Did Maru kill any of the Observers so far? I believe Mapu and Indy, of course, are here. So not a single Ops has gone down so far. And if it wasn't for the Ops spotting that first double drop, this game would have already looked very different. I'm really impressed by herO's ability to either keep Oracles or Observers or War Prisms alive. Because it's not like he's never trying, right, to get the right information or see if there's an opening somewhere. He's always right on the edge, but he doesn't overcommit often with those very important tempo-based units.
Yeah. It's real. I get testament to every part of herO's play being, I guess, noteworthy. Although this little weird AI issue, I assume. I think the Storm might have been okay on the backside, but the Immortals are severely out of place. Now don't have their shields, but the Disruptors have popped out. Shield Body Overcharge has been popped as well. A couple of Storms, I think, are still available. Yeah, well, that's the second one, and then the War Prism gets taken down. Still a very large Terran force ready to go, but going through the choke into Disruptors, into still a Shield Battery, even without Overcharge. That is a tough ask.
Yep, and that second Overcharge is always around the corner. Oh, that Archon actually getting pushed forward by the Stalkers. Kind of a trade and move there. I do think that there is a lot of potential here for Maru's army, but you kind of want to obviously go right after a couple of the Disruptors have fired. I like the movement there, though. herO needs to be a little bit careful, because if the balls do not connect with this Bio Force, that tank has been putting in some monstrous work too. Look at it, it's a 1 HP tank just getting great shot after great shot off. Great micro here by both players. herO finally wants to get rid of it, and he does. Still a lot of potential in this army of Maru, but Disruptors are absolutely what's keeping herO alive here.
Yeah, I mean, the Shield Battery, even when it's not overcharged, with how this battle is really ensuing, is, you know, constantly topping off a bunch of Archons, right? The upgrades have been evened up for a little bit as well, even though Maru is starting up his second pair of upgrades. I think herO's going to be right behind him, though, once he realizes, hey, this actually is no longer that much of a contest. Like, I'm pretty safe. 2-2 could start up. He certainly has enough Disruptors to be comfortable. I think those are, is that 7th and 8th on the way? There's already quite a bit.
There's a lot tell him we have 8.
Jeez, okay.
All right, yeah, that is disruptive shots for days. Sometimes, I mean, disruptors are fantastic, of course, but you can definitely get a bit carried away, where it's just very difficult for the rest of your army. And it's also a relatively immobile unit. That's risky, but we get away with it. Maru picks off that disruptor right before that Nova explodes in the dead center of his army. Yeah, I was pointing out the +2 because I feel that Maru's armory has been done for quite some time, right? Like, he was way ahead in upgrades, and now suddenly, well, we're working on a little adventure again. Double prism now for herO, by the way.
What else are you going to use with the Robo? Colossus? I don't think so. You just need more observers. None of them died. No, that's actually really cool. I love seeing double Warp Prism. I actually would not mind Colossus, though, to be honest. But that seems to be what herO has been working with stylistically. He's really not even bothering to add some of those more dependable anchors to an army than, you know, just 8 disruptors.
That's risky.
Yes, it is. It definitely is risky. And, you know, you can count the shots on 4 disruptors and then dive afterwards. But it looks like it bought enough time for the rest of the army to come through. But a couple of EMPs send herO running away. He will not be able to get that 5th base up and running. Not yet anyways, but he has been on 4.
I love it.
Maru just diving into the natural. It's going to go right after a Robo. Now, there are still a lot of Robo units on the field, but resetting the technology now could have repercussions later.
Okay, we do have a little bit of a recall, and that means a couple of balls coming in from the bottom, but they do not find the perfect connections. One of the Warp Prisms did go down there. A couple of Vikings. Maru did end up losing a lot of supply, but I still love the way that he was playing the last 30, 40 seconds. Just the recall there by herO was great. Firing those shots immediately allowed him to actually pick off quite a few units. But yeah, those disruptor armies are very hard to face head-on, because you can't just keep on running away, because you can run for days against 10 disruptors. We need to run from those shots too, and we didn't do that in time. But I think like utilizing the mobility that the Terran army does have over this kind of a Protoss army was fantastic. It's just that herO seems to have an answer for literally everything.
Yeah, apparently. Or I might even be getting frustrated at this point now, especially that he's on his heals. Like, he is the one now defending, and he's been in a situation before against herO, and it is just even more uncomfortable. A very aggressive blink forward. It looks like herO knows that he can win this one. He's forcing a gigantic army through one of the smallest chokes on inside and out, but it might just work out. Already the right side has been destroyed, so a left side potential flank isn't anything. Maru's just forced to evacuate and probably on his way to losing the game.
Yeah, if we lose that orbital, things are going to get very, very rough. We already have lost 15 SCVs. Stalkers working a final few shots. We're going to fire a couple of Novas just to keep the Terran army at bay. Maru now has a few Liberators, but that is just a tiny bit too late. It's funny, because when you look at that army of herO, especially when it goes through a tiny choke point, you're like, it's not even that great of an army. But it's just always the right army for that phase of the game. If Maru has a couple of tanks there and the Stalkers blink forward, you're like, what are you going to do with it? As we drop these disruptors, we lose the Prism, so that's a little bit of a donation of herO, but with the massive lead that he has created for himself, he can afford a tiny donation. I also love how he lost 1 Robo, and he's like, I'm going to build 2 more. I'm going to build 3 Colossus at a time. Why the hell not? I don't even think we have thermal lens, by the way, right?
No, we do not. So that's, you know, maybe eventually. We also didn't have a 5th put down, even though, you know, it seemed like he was intending to after pushing the army back. He did then focus entirely on going for the throat, which does mean like his bank and his economy isn't as extreme as it could be. A 20, almost 30 army supply lead, though, is making up for it. Even upgrades as well. herO just needs to get back into position. Maru kind of on his last hurrah. Yes, he still has 4 command centers up and running, but he has got to get some damage done and keep most of his army alive as well, which so far is kind of happening, right? Loses the Liberators, but gets away with the Medivacs, Ghosts, and all those Marauders.
That was quite strong, and +3 attack is now also halfway down for Maru. As herO is just now going to rebuild that base, so he's got 2 extra bases. It is important for herO, though, that he gets the extended thermal lens upgrade. Goes without saying, obviously, every person that has more than 1 Colossus wants to have it, but once more, this army of herO, it doesn't really feel like that's an invincible Protoss army. Like, no, it's an army that can work well, but you kind of need to outposition the Terran a little bit, land a couple of good balls, and normally the Colossus are fantastic there because they are able to get the shots off at range. But if you don't have extended thermal lens, they are also just going to derp, and it could become a very derpy Protoss army.
This could become a derpy game, man. Maru has been, you know, this wasn't going so successfully a little while ago. The attempt to split up the army, and that even created some awkwardness on his defense on his side of the map. Well, speaking of awkwardness, maybe now just regretting going in there. Yeah, that was a big loss of life.
No.
Yeah, don't go back in. But he did divvy up and then tried to get 2 Nexus at once. Kind of didn't work out. Just got the 1 and the 5th. Now I guess 4th is still up and running. But I mean, this has created a little bit more action, and herO is taking it very seriously. Gonna lose a handful of disruptors, get 1 decent shot in there, and Maru is once again forced to evacuate.
It looked promising for a little bit because the initial push was very good with the libs, getting the nexus, getting a few pickoffs, but this big drop in the bottom right side, herO is just so stalker heavy where it almost feels impossible to get good drops off.
Yeah.
It works great against Protoss players that walk around with like 8 to 10 stalkers, but herO at any given moment has more than 20, in this case even 33. Like that's just a ludicrous amount of stalkers, which is kind of bad in the big straight up fight if the Terran ever gets maxed out. But yeah, Maru is nowhere near maxing out.
Exactly. There's actually a lot of vulnerabilities in the army when you look at like 33 stalkers and 8 disruptors. You know, if disruptors aren't getting big shots or they're just out of shots, not that 8 would usually be, then the stalkers are, you know, they're papery, right? But it's working out really well because herO's always in these great positions. This is one of the more direct fights that we've had where the stalkers, a lot of them were not in position, but they were all coming at the perfect time to pick off most of the medevacs as Maru is now down to just 100 supply, and that is an intimidating warp, and if I've ever seen one, Maru might just tap out after that. Yep, wow. GG.
herO, after a 19-minute game on the inside and out, takes a 2-0 lead over Maru. You're not done yet, mate. It's the best of 5, but man, I don't know how he does it. herO just seems to be so good at figuring out where he's at in a game and how to make the best of somewhat dire scenarios. He should have been in so much trouble multiple times, and he just wasn't. A very, very good performance for him. I also think Maru had amazing moments in that game. And even that final fight, of course, he ended up losing it just because he was behind in the game and herO was a lot richer. But sniping all those disruptors standing right there, it all looked very cool. But it was not enough for Maru after all the economic damage he took.
Yeah, once again, the first-person view, slow-mo as well. Get to see every projectile in a rewind feature. Awesome. But yeah, I think in general, herO is really quite tricky to play against, and we usually say tricky as far as build orders go, compositions perhaps, but when he gets down to what is his macro composition, we'll call that, right? He's got Storms, Disruptors, and majority Stalkers, and actually for a lot of that late game, Storms weren't really present, but they were very important in the mid game. Anyways, he still makes that look like impossible to defeat, right? So a Terran sees mass playing Stalkers, and they're like, well, that's vulnerable if I get the right engagement. But then disruptors are there to always scare you back from taking that engagement. And even then, even if you do kind of find a good engagement, the fact that there's usually 5 immortals in the mid-game to late-game army also adds more of a wallop than the Terrans are used to. And especially if you add in a shield battery with there too, it's not, none of this is simple for Maru, even when he tries his best to open up the simplicity, to get those engagements going really well, to even take a defensive engagement or on a choke. And it still doesn't go well for him.
I go over that game in my head, and I was like, there are 3 moments where herO should be in all sorts of trouble. First, it's the double drop with the Raven, but he barely caught a glimpse of it with the Observer, which prevents that scenario. But then there's still the actual push, which would have been very devastating for a lot of Protoss players to ever deal with. He has 3 or 4 Storms to work with, and all of them are picture perfect in the dead center of the Bio army. Then there is another follow-up push where the Terran army looks absolutely terrifying once more, and it just kind of stays there, fires a couple of balls, warps in a couple units, has a battery overcharge, and slowly but steady, like obviously Maru is forced to stim over and over again, never quite able to take the real engagement Terran players want. Medevacs start running low on energy and enough time goes by and herO stabilizes again. It's really impressive. I mean, he makes a lot of things look easy that are not easy, because how many times on tiny maps haven't we seen Protoss players just completely fall over? If they have 34 army supply, the Terran has 60, tiny map, Terran is pushing out. Yeah, you land 1 or 2 storms, but it's not enough. You lose the game, right? Well, not this guy. He never seems to lose. He is going to try to make it into the next round of the lower bracket here at TSL 9. Top right side, up to 0. It is Dragon Phoenix Gaming's herO.
In the bottom left is the yellow Terran. For onside, he is Maru.
6 out of the last 7 games not going your way. Even if you are one of the most accomplished players of all time like Maru is, that has to get to you. Like 6 out of 7, that hurts.
I guess, yeah. It's not often that we have Maru up against someone who is just apparently unbeatable for him, right? I mean, there was maybe a little bit of that contention for TVT back when TY was still playing, and we were like, oh, well, Maru has trouble there at the very least. And then TY went to the military and was like, okay, Maru, you just dominate TVT from now on. But yeah, to go up now against herO, seemingly, right? GSO finals, maybe just an off day, maybe just didn't expect the wild punches coming out as fast as they did. Well, now it's another best of 5, and herO is dominating is maybe a too big of a word, but 2-0 and getting himself out of all of the fickle situations Protosses would usually struggle in. It just, I feel like as a Terran player, you just look at that and you're like, well, what do I do then?
Yeah. And this is also, I think, a pretty terrifying map. Like, if Maru wins this map, obviously he needs to win it to stay alive in this tournament. But if he does win this one, I still kind of believe in the Maru comeback. Just I always do. It's like something that herO has and something that Maru has for me. Even if they're losing, I'm like, they'll probably set it straight, right? Like, I'm not too worried yet until they actually start losing Game 3 as well. And they're on the verge of being eliminated. But decisive is a map that kind of has herO's playstyle written all over it. There is so much surface area to blink into the main base. We could go for some oracles. We haven't seen a single oracle yet, but we know that herO is damn good with those too. For Maru, it's really just all about not taking a lot of damage in the early game. I do think that second game, if you play that a few more times after the initial 5 minutes, Maru is absolutely going to win quite a few of those outcomes. It's just a lot of little things that had to go well for herO. They absolutely did, because he played great. And maybe Maru could have split up his units a bit more. Maybe Maru could have tried to snipe with Prism or stay a bit further away from those Prisms, etc. But yeah. It's the first game was very rough, because I was like, all right, if this continues, there is no hope. The second game, I think, if you're a Maru fan, it should give you some hope, but it also should have been a win, and that obviously is extra painful.
Exactly. Again, just kind of like, well, what do I do then? So maybe you can look at the replay and say, like, well, maybe I'll hit harder there, or I'll pull back more there, and you know, whatnot. But then herO changed that up completely, and then starts off with the depths going into Stargate, and is going to be Phoenix being chronoed as well. So could we have Phoenix Charge, Phoenix Colossus, and even Phoenix Resident Glaives apparently coming back? Zalon brought that out again, but I think for herO, he tried it back when he first came back from the military, and it did not go well. So I don't think he's going to do that.
No, out of the three that you mentioned, the first two I'm a very big fan of. The third one is like, all right, once in a blue moon it looks great, and 9 out of 10 times, like Phoenix and Adepts, they just kind of suck against Bunkers, they suck against Widow Mines, and they even suck against a couple of Marauders that are getting healed up. But this already, like, build order scenario, normally you don't hate this if you're herO. You're like, all right, later command center. And especially if Maru would commit to a quick drop. And Maru did not scout yet, right? He has no idea about the Phoenixes. I mean, he sees the Adepts, and that's obviously a bit of an indicator, but could be an Oracle.
Exactly. Could be an Oracle into Blink. Anyways, right? So the Phoenix are going to be a surprise. I guess kind of fortunately for Maru, he's not going to be going for a drop right into them. So that's something. But I am quite concerned, just in general, being down 0-2, not quite having all the information. And let's see how it really pans out once herO does bring those Phoenix out in the map. It's going to be Twilight Council with a third gas there, so he's looking for a Nexus soon too.
Maybe Maru is just going to get a ridiculous amount of Marines and even pull a couple boys. It's a bit too early to talk about SCV pools, but I think against Phoenix Gateway, going for an SCV pool is not too bad if you just have a nice amount of bio units. Because having a Colossus as well after going Twilight is very unlikely, and even if you have one, that may not necessarily be enough. Going Storm after opening up Phoenix Zealot is also not something, it just doesn't flow that well. Those units don't really complement each other very well, as we do have a Templar Archives just going down immediately. herO just does everything, man. A 5-minute Templar Archives after going up to 3 bases, having Phoenixes, and also going for Zealot Charge. That's so wild to me.
Yeah, I do wonder if he's responding to something that he's seen. Certainly, he was making sure to check where the army was and what it consisted of with the Adepts. So, you know, the Phoenixes could go across, and they've already killed 7 SCVs. It's pretty nice. But then he did say, okay, well, I'm going to add a 4th gas and then go into Templar Archives, which it is everything. And it's not off, like, the greatest economy ever. That Nexus didn't come in like 3 minutes, right? But it's going to be perhaps very effective, because again, we saw that last game. He was maybe in a bit of trouble, but he used everything that he had so damn well that even when it looked like it was vulnerable, it just wasn't. herO won it.
It's kind of cool. Like, you can obviously go already with 3 Phoenixes and lift 1 or 2 SCVs, but then you give the Terran the heads up, like, hey, this is happening, and then the Terrans are going to get ready for it. Because he waited a bit longer and let the Phoenix count go up this high. Suddenly, one moment of the Terran being out of position is all you need, and you kill 7 SCVs. And that's obviously a very decent amount of workers. We are trying to lift a Marauder there. That does not quite work out. I mean, if that's the first mistake of herO, that kind of tells you enough about how well he's been playing so far. Did not get away with that one. I am still a bit worried for herO, because you look at the army supply, and it's 52 for Maru. These Phoenixes are not going to be great, and like I said, Phoenix Storm, if you do all of these things this early, it doesn't complement each other that well, because let's say you land a great Storm now. Cool. then
what
what?
follows up. Exactly.
Yeah, what can you do?
Yeah. No, it's a very dangerous game that herO is playing. He just, he chrono boosted his probes a couple of times, so his economy is, that is going to be better, especially after his kills on the SCVs. But yeah, the army supply is a big deal. He's not warping in Zealot after Zealot after Zealot after Zealot. This is one of the first big warp-ins that he's had, but he does have Storm. That is going to be complete, going up against +1 attack from the Terran. And it looks like the Terran's going to take a bit slower push to this. He might actually be able to be more aggressive.
Yeah, I agree.
But he's nice and steady, I guess.
But it's obviously hard for Maru to make that same call, because what if he gets flanked by a couple of Zealots? What if the Phoenixes lift up his mines? Then his tournament life is over. I do like that he's building the expand on location. And herO is obviously taking this push very serious of Maru, so he's not able to really slow this down. Yeah, Maru, your army was so much more powerful than the army of herO. Like it was not even remotely close. Yeah, maybe a bit traumatized from those great storms of the previous game.
Yeah, actually, it might be exactly it, because if they weren't so perfect, then you would have been in that winning situation. But now scanning and seeing that the army was not that intimidating, kind of missed the opportunity to kind of jump on it, so they pulled back the shield battery. There's more units actually, yes, definitely waiting somewhere, and we do have even a couple of Zealots looking to delay that third command center, so I mean, it's something nice, right? It keeps Maru a little bit at home, but yeah, the opportunity to win the game, certainly, like, it might have been there, but maybe that is arguable. I mean, the opportunity to actually stick around here is now also dissipating. Like, he might have to retreat very soon.
herO is also going to have a very hard time winning this game on 3 bases, though. Because, like, the Storms are great defensively, but offensively, right now, I have a hard time believing that the Storms really do have game-ending damage. And the Widowmine count is very high. The Robo isn't done yet. We don't have an Oracle, so you can't really clean this up successfully unless you want to sacrifice 6 or 7 units, but even that takes a little while, right? And you have to wait until they fire, so herO is obviously not super happy with this either, because he's probably like, man, I kind of wish that I would have cleaned up your army by now, or I wish that I would have gone up to 4 bases myself.
Right, that's certainly a point in favor of the Terran setup there. And it really was something that you had to take seriously, but you couldn't necessarily do a whole lot about. So even the Storms, trying to take care of them when they're already spread out like this, that could actually be a waste. That's a bit scary, but the Ghosts, obviously the scariest parts once they get in the front lines.
He goes triple Robo now, Zombie Bro.
Yes, that is true. That's 2 more Robos on top of the one he already has. Did he actually get a Robotics Bay, though?
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, that's a bit questionable. I know he does like adding in a decent amount of Immortals, but usually in a different flow, for sure. So just trying to go right into 3 Immortals, that's certainly not what Protoss usually do.
Yep, did manage to clean up all the mines in the end, and he landed one very juicy storm there on a bunch of Marines. As we have a big Zealot warping in the bottom side. That first pylon gateway got cancelled, and he's like, oh, I'm just going to do it all over again, slightly further away. This moment here is very important, because Maru lands an EMP on a couple of the High Templars. That's big, one more, but that one gets feedback. But the army of the Terran is still a lot stronger here than what herO is working with, and this is kind of what happens when you warp in 10 Zealots in the bottom side of the map. You have 5 Phoenixes, you're going triple Robo. I mean, not even herO can do it all.
That was certainly a mistake there from herO to try and save the Nexus. Of course, the argument is always that he kind of had to save the Nexus. He was going to continue falling behind, but certainly that was not the timing to do so. Not only was his army really not that great, there were the EMPs, and the Warp Prism was seconds away from popping to at least try and ferry those around, get better storms, save them from being EMP'd, so on and so forth. Now it's here, with only 1 High Templar, doesn't even have the storm apparently. It is not going to be all that helpful, and Maru will certainly be picking up his first victory in this best of 5.
And a beautiful game by Maru as well. GG gets called. Maru gets a point on the board. We are not going to kick TSL9 off with a 3-0, and he looked absolutely fantastic in doing it. Because if he would have won with that first push, where he has a couple of Marines, Marauders, a couple of Widowmines, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, decisive. I mean, but that was do or die. But Maru's like, no, I don't have to make it do or die. I'm just going to pick up the Cybercore. I'm going to annoy him. I'm going to slow him down. I know he's a bit further ahead right now, but I'm just going to take my time, go up to 3 bases myself, and make damn sure that my bio army can grow, and I will not get stormed into oblivion. He played it out very well, and herO did look a little flustered, because not even herO can obviously justify Phoenix, Templar Archives, Twilight Council, Zealot Charge, and triple Robo on 3 bases. Like,
not the triple row. That was actually kind of that was kind of insane. Back to being short zombie grub, unfortunately. But yes, I think that was really more of a game where Maru was able to throw herO off kilter. Like, he was the one that was changing the pace of it. So when herO was like, well, you're going to try to attack me, and I'm going to have this set up with storms and a shield battery, so you're going to make a mistake. Maru did just say, like, well, maybe I could have killed you, but no, let's just play it in a really, really obnoxious way where you have to be wary of me, but then you don't have to dedicate. So
I mean, it's really turning into a great best of 5. Like, that first game obviously was a bit one-sided, where Maru tried to get a little bit lucky. Fortunate early game didn't work out against the build. Second game, technically a fantastic game. The fact that herO won it, the fact that he hung in there. And the third game, very worried for Maru. At one point, it's 50 probes against 34 SCVs. You're like, oh no, don't let it end like this. But I think he played it out in an absolutely phenomenal manner. This means that Maru gets a point on the board. We're going to go ahead and take a little break, and after that, we'll be back with Game 4 between herO and Maru.
welcome back, everyone. You got TSL 9 underway. Lower brackets, herO versus Maru. Best of 5. Currently herO leading 2-1. Maru finally able to say something on Data C. And now we move on to Moondance.
Once more, I do think that's a pretty decent map for Maru. I can see this going all 5 games. Seems like these guys are in good spirits. They've been pretty close. I saw them hanging out outside of the building earlier as well. Up and down, always very smiling, especially herO. He just seems to absolutely be loving life as a StarCraft 2 player, and it does do me well. Like, it's fun to see these guys not, feel the pressure all the time of having to do, well at whatever event they go to, or being frustrated with XYZ in the game. herO just seems to be very happy, and it makes me happy.
He's always been, right? Nickname Smiling Assassin. That's also something that's really nice to see. So you can say him from 6 years ago at an IEM also being just as happy. Just as. Maybe even a little bit more now that he seems to be not just being a very good player, but also helping to push Protoss forward. Imagine coming back from military and taking that first GSL for the sake of Protoss in 5 years. It's pretty cool. It would make me happy as well.
And Maru's like, damn it, why did you return? All right, here we go. Game 4 between these two, opening best of 5 of the 6 best of 5s that we have in store for you guys today. Top left side, we're looking at the main base of our Korean Protoss, the reigning GSL Code S champ. It is Dragon Phoenix Gaming's herO.
In the bottom right for Onside Gaming, he is the Yellow Terran, Maru.
Definitely played very well in Game 2 and Game 3. I think Maru had a lot of crazy good big fights. It's just kind of a shame that the early game where he had so much potential in Game 2, it didn't quite go his way. But I do feel that this is not an off day for Maru. If you can micro your units like that, if you can snipe disruptors the way that he did, and you can control things, and also in that final game, right, how decisive he was going up that ramp, landing that first EMP, definitely tried to land the second one too, but herO said, nope, I'll feedback. But even that is not that bad, right? Because you much rather see one ghost get feedback than see another big storm in the center of your army.
Yes, that is actually, that's going to go. And last game really, I think, was Maru controlling the pace of the game a little bit more, and I think that is absolutely important. As much as he maybe tried, intended to control the pace, as Terran can do, and then maybe the mid game for the previous game, game number 2, it just never happened. herO was too well protected, and then I think kind of flipped the script pretty quickly from Maru having the dangerous army and the dangerous gambit of the drop to herO having the security of, I guess, the army that he creates and that he works with very well. But then you add that last game in, and it's like, well, Maru just kind of almost gave herO no options. It looked like herO was like, well, let me bust out. Okay, I can't. I don't have any detection for those Widow Mines. Okay, let me expand. Oh, well, I can't. Well, then I guess I have to die either way, to lose my expansion or lose the army and the expansion, which is what happened.
It's very funny as well, because the way that herO played the Phoenix Zealot into, well, in this case, Storm, very different than how a lot of the top-tier European Protosses would play Phoenix Zealot. They would probably stay on Phoenix Zealot, get a +1 armor for the Zealots, and then be like, let's smash that first attack, and then we'll transition. And I really wonder if herO would have taken that approach, how Maru would have then played out his game, right? Because if he does get cleaned up once, I mean, then you literally only have one choice, I think, and that's just to follow up with an all-in immediately. But with all those Widow Mines, it would have been very hard for just pure Phoenix Zealot to get a great fight against that army too. Unless you lift the mines, obviously, before they burrow, but that's always the fun little dance when those two bulls go up against each other.
Yeah, I think herO either way that he plays that out, I mean, certainly the a lot of the deal scenario is the Terran player again overplaying the attack and making a mistake, and then thinking, well, that wasn't as bad as it could have been. I didn't get punished for this, so let's go back home. And then herO having suddenly storms on the Terran side of the map, and a proxy gateway is what he was trying to set up, because again, he did not have that robo. But that could have worked out brilliantly, looked perfect, and then we were at a 3-0. Instead, it kind of got hung up. And it was like, okay, well, you're not giving me this, so I got to make something happen, which he could not do. Now making something happen though, 2 Stalkers, really annoying without that ramp to help out especially, but just with the way that Maru opened, those Hellions not really the combaters that you would want. Reapers a little bit more so, but
yeah, herO does need to be careful because 3 Reapers into Hellions are way stronger. They have a lot more micro potential. So Rico gets activated. Stalker lives. If the other Reaper would have just been there a little bit quicker, get a few more shots in. Good job there by herO not being stubborn. Sometimes Protoss players were like, oh, my units. No, never mind. And then you realize it too late and you lose at least one, if not the second one too. This time around, herO does not lose anything other than 50 energy on the Nexus. And with this kind of an opening as Maru, you also ideally want to kill a couple of probes. And at this point, it's going to become harder and harder. Maybe the Reapers can sneak into the main base. Oh, herO a little bit out of position. Maru should just drop some zoning grenades, I think. I absolutely love that. Let's see how many works we can get. I think anything more than 3 is totally fine. 3 is kind of like the bare minimum you want to settle for.
Ended up being handled rather well there from herO, despite losing track of the army for really like a second, but able to clean things up, as well as stop any scouts into the main base. So the total number of gateways still a bit questionable, though usually you'd add some to the front, and it is going to be, well, so I thought it was 2 gateways, right, with a robo. But with Maru going for Banshees and a tank, I actually am quite interested in Moondance in this matchup. I feel like Terrans have a lot of strong pushes here. It's the shortest map we have, rush distance-wise. But herO seems to enjoy the map. It doesn't seem to really care about those pushes, still handles it rather well. Gonna add on a fast Warp Prism. He's not super dedicating, guys, but this is going to provide the opportunity for harassment and a bit of tracking in the army as well.
Do we have an observer? No, right?
I think he went Warp Prism first.
Yeah, Warp Prism first. Now, I love that Maru is sending the first Banshee into the natural. Obviously, you can say this is a no-brain decision because he knows about the shield battery in the main base. herO, I'm not sure if he saw that. I have the feeling that he didn't, actually. Maybe saw a blip for a split second, but this is going to hurt. We have an Immortal on the way, no Observer. This is a Cloaked Banshee, no shield battery in the natural. I mean, this is cash money for Maru, and this is finally like one of these early games where you're like, if you're Maru here, you're like, yes. But at this point, he probably thinks, okay, this is too good to be true. I'm sure there is an Observer, and Stalkers are ready to blink on me. No, not yet. He actually could have done a little bit more there, but it's still already very good.
Yeah, I'd say so. The shield battery was built in the main base to make sure that... Yeah, he did. He scouted it just barely. Because he knew there wasn't going to be too much to be grabbed there, but trying to open up an opportunity for the second Banshee, perhaps. 5 probes in total have gone down. I was talking about a push because this can sometimes lead into you drag the units out of position, the tanks go across the map, and then it gets a little bit difficult. But that's actually not what Maru's doing. He is going to have his tanks back at home, helping to protect against anything that is probably Blinkstalker-wise. So a lot of Blinkstalkers, or even just the 4 Blinkstalkers that we see here, one-shotting these SCVs. But they've already caused a little bit of chaos. I mean, whatever tank he has is not positioned to stop this. And of course, they can just blink and then get picked up in the Warp Prism.
Real shame that Maru did not believe that he could be so fortunate that herO had 0 observers, right? Because that Banshee in the natural, if it would have just stayed on the probes, it would have ended up with 7 or 8 kills and a lot more lost mining time. Definitely a bloody shame there for Maru. Try to get fancy, send one into the main base. The second one goes back into the natural, but that's when the observer was there and main base was protected by the shield battery. So what could have been absolutely fantastic turned into, it's alright, because he did save one of the Banshees, but nowhere near as good as what it could have been.
Yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. herO once again is going to go into Storm fairly quickly. Just the priority on that is the splash. Lots of gas coming up, and I assume eventually going into what we expect from him now, which is going to be 2 Robos and Disruptors. But soon, not quite yet. Maru has decided to just kind of even turtle 3 bases on Moondance. The third one being more of a half base, but very, very safe. Wall at the front of his natural, and then it's 3 missile turrets, right? So very much not wanting to deal with Warp Prism harassment, or did I see that? Was it just 1? Might have just been 1 actually. Oh, okay, maybe just all around the map.
Yeah, there's I think maybe 1 in the pocket expand.
Yeah.
based on the menu
Exactly.
Yep. So it is triple turret. I don't really hate this because herO does get very late upgrades, right? Where herO often always puts himself in a spot where he needs to do damage or he just needs to smash the incoming Terran push that often happens. And then it works out if your upgrades are late. But if the Terran just doesn't do anything and suddenly you're like, damn it, he's got 1-1, I've got 0-0. In this case, we are already working on +1. And I think herO's reading this game correctly. He sees the turrets. He knows that Maru's not going to be aggressive. So that's why it drops the second robe and the robe a bit quicker. And I personally wouldn't hate Colossus as an opening here rather than Disruptors like he often does. But I'm curious to see if this is still a Disruptor moment for him.
Yeah, I got 30 seconds to figure that one out, but I think you're right. I think he identified that that's how Maru is going to play. There's a world or a different Protoss at the very least who would have been very stubborn and would have tried to maybe knock down that front door or at the very least contain, while that may be prioritizing macro. But herO is trying to change things up. Very dangerous game to play there as the Storm drop not quite working out. And it is going to be Colossus coming out first and foremost, so a lot more dependable. And yeah, he is going to remember extended thermal lance.
I'm smiling a little bit because he actually started the Disruptor and he's like, nah. Cancel the Disruptor, then he went double Colossus, extended thermal lens. It just kind of makes sense because it's a slightly slower paced game and there is a chance that you're going to have to deal with some drops while the big push is happening. And Colossus are a little bit better in those scenarios than Disruptors are. So I like this choice by herO a lot, and it also shows us that he doesn't just follow like the ABC build order in his brain. He's like, no, this is a different game. The pacing is very different of this one. I'm going to play it out in a different manner. And we even have a couple of Stargates going down already.
Exactly. That's what I was getting excited about very much reading into the next 3 minutes. So we're going to actually be able to get a Fleet Beacon down and then probably into those Tempests once again. Certainly different map than what they played on in GSL. It was Cosmic Sapphire. That was the super long game. On a very large map, this is, as I said, one of the shorter ones, although the amount of bases is okay, and it certainly can lend itself to, yeah, this fourth base being quite protected. Even the fifth base, they're kind of going to have a choke to work with, so on and so forth. So it is going to go late game. herO is identifying that, already preparing for that, and while you might say, well, what about Maru, guys? Like, why are we talking about herO all the time? It is kind of the situation where we expect herO, because of that GSL, to be the one to figure things out and make it work against Maru. I am more scared for Maru. Maru, yes, is playing the game that apparently he wants to play, but is that actually ideal for him? Or is he going to once again lose the extended macro game versus herO?
Yeah, but this map, like you said, this map is so much smaller. And also in that game on Cosmic Sapphire, herO did have a monstrous bank, right? Like I don't remember the exact details anymore, but I just remember at one point, herO was very, very rich and Maru was just trying to get one extra little base with like 7 or 8 tanks. And it felt that Maru was not just going to have to win a fight, but he's going to have to completely smash a fight and then also kill off the reinforcements to even make it an even game. This time around, herO cannot afford a single bad fight because he doesn't have that kind of a bank. He has been spending crazy money on upgrades, infrastructure, and a bit of everything. And I also feel like he's got a pretty fragile army at the moment, as he even built not 1, but 2 oracles already, which I find a bit crazy. But I guess he truly wants to stabilize on that Tempest, Disruptor, Revelation wombo combo. I don't know, I think it's going to be very hard, and I was worried back then on Cosmic Sapphire, but herO actually made it look easy. I think this time around, though, it's going to be a lot harder, because Maru is not stuck with necessarily 12 tanks that he can't do anything with, and economically, it's a much more fair game.
That is true. That is true. And I mean, maybe like trying to think exactly what Cosmic Sapphire looks like. Perhaps the protection of certainly that back base is there. Like that's easy enough, right? But I'm thinking like 5th and 6th bases. I guess, yeah, still pretty close to the 4th, so that's not going to be too difficult. To bounce between left and right is really what I'm thinking of. Because at some point, it is going to be herO on the offensive, usually more so than the Terran just really turtling, right? So it's an answer of, can I track the army? What type of army is going which way? And then, you know, eventually, honestly, just the battering down of the defenses. First the tanks go, then suddenly Zealots come in everywhere. Whoa. That's actually more of an aggressive stim in than I was expecting. Same for herO. Thought the Storm was going to cover him for a while. Maru was like, wait a minute, army's still alive. Wanted to stop the advancement of static defense, but yeah, the rest of the army was coming around.
Yeah, Maru actually killed the War Prism there too, and a couple of High Templars. Can we take a look at the units lost resource tab? It's not super important right now, but I'm just kind of curious to see which direction we're heading. Maru losing around 1,200 resources less than herO so far. 3 High Templars is a decent amount, but in a game like this, that shouldn't be game ending. I do feel that like herO is really gonna need the rolling fight, right? Like a revelation, a ball, run away, shoot a couple times, run away. If these armies are actually going to clash, Maru's army is like 3 or 4 times better. But obviously it's up to herO to prevent that, and that's normally where the cannons and batteries come into play.
Right, yes, absolutely. Forward advancements is a great idea, but then also that picking off that I was talking about, maybe it doesn't seem like such a big deal that you lost a couple of tanks, the planetary's still up, your army's still relatively close, then it gets pulled to the right, suddenly a couple of DTs even, although we don't really have DT Blink in play quite yet, but just as if, 8 DTs come in and still can take down a planetary abso-freaking-lutely. So that's just, it's definitely up to the onus is kind of on the Protoss to make the openings where the Terran player, and depending on the map, can absolutely just continue to slowly expand and wear the Protoss out. So of course, if the Protoss ever finds an opening, then they're just going to be maybe mining out the game, sure, but still steadily losing.
We've got the Kalazura upgrade on the way.
Is that what they're going to call it now? It is funny because I know he used it a couple times in like the Cast of a War, for instance, but I remember the GSO versus the World, he faced Innovation, I want to say, and I remember that was a really good TVT. He got it then too.
I think he got it a long time ago against Dark as well, right? In in BlizzCon maybe or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right though. I never really thought about it, but all the times I think of getting the medevac boost upgrade, a lot of times it is Kalazur or an extremely stupidly long TVT, which thankfully we don't have.
+2 ship weapons on the way for Maru as well. I do still like how this game is going for Maru, and even this kind of stuff. Like, the Protoss army is pretty slow besides the Blink Stalker, so getting a couple of or Liberators around the map to siege up some mineral lines while allowing the Bio army to make some progress too. I think Maru is playing a mighty fine game so far, and I have a hard time believing that herO absolutely loves where it's going, but at the same time, he has truly embraced where this game is going. Right. And he's like, no, I'm fine with this. I want to play this kind of a game, because he went into Stargates way before he ever had to go into Stargates. He made Oracles way before he had to make Oracles. So herO is clearly okay with the state of this game, but I think Maru is quite okay with it as well. I
think there's a lot more to say in this game for Maru, which is a little bit scarier. Even the nuke coming in here, yeah, okay, he's gonna go use the nuke. Can sometimes signal a transition of how the game's going to go. We'll talk about that in 1 second. This is a huge concave coming in from Maru. herO realizing that he made a mistake, tries to pull back, but it is just way too much. He is going to lose one big, expensive army. Can he replace it in time is now the question. I don't think so. His bank is not that impressive. It was all of the slow-building units, and that might just be it, guys. One bad fight to end the game. Some Storms might be able to buy some more time. Can they buy enough time to actually make up for that?
Yeah, the only thing we can really do right now is maybe wipe in a lot more Gateway units, because sometimes going back to the Gateway units is very good against the complex Terran armies that have a lot of Vikings and Liberators and a couple of Ghosts in the mix. But that was a phenomenal fight for Maru. Can we take a look at the units lost resource tab now? Because that must look very different. It was 1100 in favor. Okay,
so it went to 6,000 in favor? Is that how we read that? I don't know.
Yeah. So Maru taking another phenomenal trade. herO losing around 4,000 or 5,000 resources more in that battle. Definitely, I think Maru is a bit sad that his push just got stopped by 1 or 2 storms, because there was a lot of potential to at least take out that base at 9 o'clock.
There is so much potential there, actually. There is absolutely a world where it's something but Zealots coming in, and maybe you could build 12 Zealots at a time. That's usually intimidating. With how good that fight went for Maru, it wouldn't have been enough. So the Storms are absolutely critical. Good on herO to have those backup Storms, just in case the Terran is like, yeah, I can win this game now, right? Yeah, love that as a Terran player. So herO has remaxed, and what also I think is he was allowed to do it on some of the top tier units as well, Disruptors and Tempest, so it's not like he is on pure Zealot Stalker. But again, got to be very careful with how he takes engagements. Terran army, absolutely fantastic. Got to pick some of these units off before you really want to engage, which kind of is happening as he's retreating. But now, if he retreats, he's opening up opportunities for Maru to go into his natural base, right? And he's actually losing a lot of units.
Yeah, Maru's playing a phenomenal game, and he's not going to give herO these dream disruptor shots. Another couple of massive EMPs blanket the entire Protoss army. We have a couple of Novas going forward, but even if those Novas are absolutely perfect, it's just not going to make the difference. This Terran army is a lot stronger than the remaining Protoss units. I think Battery Overcharge is on cooldown, but I'm not even sure if that really would have made the difference. Zombie Graph, I think it's going to a 5-game series where Maru has just played an absolutely fantastic game. Game 3 and Game 4.
I'm really happy that he got to say how good he was in the late game. Cosmic Sapphire and GSO Finals kind of just crumbled before his eyes. It was on its way out for an extended period of time. But this time around on Moondance, he gets a lot more to say across the entire game, a lot more action. Once they got settled on 5 to 6 bases anyways, and then actually being able to push into herO's army, I think really made all the difference. herO's army, the first one and the rebuilt one, probably a lot better if Maru's the one still in the defensive. Then he's picking a lot of units off, but once Maru was willing to engage, herO just crumbled.
herO just did not expect Maru to engage his army in the center of the map. He really thought like, all right, this is the ultimate turtle game. I'm going to get a couple of shots off. You're going to be annoying with a little drop. Maru throws down a scan. He looks at the army and says, I actually think my bio units are going to be totally fine. I've got a couple of tanks in the high ground. Let's go. And that really caught herO by surprise. And once he lost that fight, he never truly found his ultimate place anymore. He got another somewhat decent army, but I think especially the Archons are very deceiving because they just get EMP'd like those High Templars just did. I mean, I think most of them just got warped in, but there really is nothing for herO to be hopeful of anymore. Maru is making these splits look easy at this point, and that's when you know that Maru is feeling it. I love it. Game 5 to start off TSL 9. Couldn't get any better.
That's what we were hoping for these guys. It is still the lower bracket. It all comes down to the Game 5 as we watch this one certainly on its way out. So that's a reversal of the narrative there. herO must acknowledge that he is in a tough spot, can get nowhere close to remaxing, is running out of those bases, and he knows that Maru is very content on 6, 7 bases, however many extra orbital commands, and he's just hoping that maybe a couple of disruptor shots can open up an opportunity for a counterattack. Because even if he did kill this entire army from Maru, Maru is pretty comfy to go ahead and rebuild. So maybe he can win engagement. Maybe this is him pushing back. Maybe we're supposed to get hyped about it, but it's really hard to, all right? herO is on his last life.
Yeah, Maru's army is a lot better than herO's army, and herO knows that too. A couple of EMPs land on the Tempest. First one goes down, the second one will fall as well. The production tab sometimes tells the tales, Amigrot. 3 commands and the 6 Medivacs, 2 Marauders, 4 Marines, 3 goes against an Observer and a Prism. Yeah, okay. I think our narrative was fine. Ooh, that could have been an amazing shot.
Yeah, could have been salt in the wound. I mean, herO has had a steady number of probes, funnily enough, after all this chaos, but and he also had a decent number of Nexus to mine from too, but now the problem is the amount of Nexus. So I think his mining is still okay. Yeah, you can actually see the numbers on this overlay. Thank you, TSL. But it's about rebuilding a good army in a really bad position. So you're down in supply, you're down in positioning, so literally Maru's the one controlling how these engagements are happening, and what you're rebuilding now might be an army that you're very good with in certain other games. We gotta talk about the vulnerability of Blinkstalker Disruptor, all right? That's usually what is vulnerable about it. It can be jumped on, it can die pretty quickly, more quickly than you imagine. Disruptors don't hit, but in the past, herO was able to make this look really good. I don't know about in a game like this.
I think Maru could have gone there at one point when not a single ball was heading his way. Now, herO's army is a bit split up, though, and it's very awkward. He can't really recall all of that. Oh, no, he's going to lose so much. Even just a couple of Marauders with Stimmy, nice EMPs.
Oh, the tanks. Oh, my gosh.
Stalker Massacre.
Oh, God, yeah. There was no escaping from that one. That was too awkward. He couldn't have even tried to go for any attempted, like, base snipe, because, you know, we haven't really mentioned that, like, so many tanks are still back defending Maru's base. Like, a lot of these engagements in the middle of the map have been less supply than Maru actually has. Big old drop on top of everything, and herO once again plummets in supply down below 100, and there we have the tap out officially going to go to game number 5.
Maru and his 14 Medivacs there towards the end of the game tie things up, and that means that Tropical Sacrifice is going to be our final map. Definitely a map that I think a lot of pros players are quite fond of, and I think Terrans don't love it all that much in this matchup, but if Maru would really want to play a similar game, I think there is some opportunities for that. Obviously, you don't have a pocket expand. You're going to need a few more missile turrets, but it's doable. But I mean, it can play out in so many different ways. And herO will know where that game went wrong. It was the very first time that his army got cleaned up in the center of the map. That was not supposed to happen. He could lose those units eventually because he had a big economy, a lot of production facilities. So it's okay to trade, but that wasn't a trade. That was a donation pretty much. And it's very hard to recover from a donation like that against Maru himself.
Right, and even though he was capable of rebuilding, he did get maxed out again. It's a very similar scenario happened again where he got stomped. He did not think that the engagement was going to happen in such a way. The Terran actually just pulling the trigger, so he lost another army in similar fashion. So it really does come down to, I think, his being pounced on. Again, if he had been the one that was in control and the Terran army was just beat-bopping between planetaries defensively, then he is the one getting kind of almost free pickoffs a lot of the time, eventually opening up opportunities. But Maru, I think in that game, was allowed to be out on the map a little bit more in a very, very even game leading up to the 5-6 base scenario, and eventually was able to take advantage of a very good fight. So
I would have loved to see herO just be like a bit more active with a bunch of Gaver units, the double robot that he had, and then really slow down the 5th base of Maru, right? Whether Maru wants to take it on the bottom side of the map or if he wants to take it at 3 o'clock, I think you can have a couple of nice skirmishes around there, then send in a couple of Zealot run-bys towards whatever base you feel like there is a tiny opening, and then herO can keep on growing like he's done in the past. 6 bases, 7 bases, and then you get all the static defenses, then you go into the Tempest. But now you're kind of just like, oh no, I'm just going to go Tempest Disruptor immediately because I believe that I can get this done. And it's not impossible, but you need crazy patience. You need Showtime level of patience. Okay? Showtime, I think, had a very similar game against Maru on that very specific map in TSL. Yeah, herO, I think by nature is just an aggressive guy. He loves to fight. He loves to at least see something happening on his screen. And you cannot expose an army like that if you want to play like that.
I think that herO was really hoping to streamline the process, right? Might even I looked at some of those really late game games versus Maru and been like, well, I could have done this even faster. I could have gotten that kill even faster. I could have made sure that he didn't have this opportunity to come back if I just streamline everything and I've identified correctly what type of game it is. But in that case, I feel like heading so relentlessly towards the Stargates, getting to that type of game, instead of, as you were saying, maybe more gateway, momentum, mobility focused. Yeah, I think it doesn't exactly play into herO's strengths, and it also, again, gave maybe Maru more opportunity for some engagements rather than just constantly being on the defensive. And now it all goes into Tropical Sacrifice, guys. Game number 5 in the top right as the purple Protoss for DPG. He is herO.
And in the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of the man who's trying to make the reverse sweep happen here at TSL 9, live from Utrecht, the Netherlands. This is Onsite Gaming's Maru. Can't believe we're casting from the Netherlands.
Yeah, you're so happy about this.
I am.
I mean, I really like about, I guess, kind of like Europe in general is that, I don't know, I feel like me saying I'm excited about casting from the United States, like it's such a large place. Like, would I really be excited about casting in California? I'm East Coast? Probably not. But you're just like, it's Virginia? The Netherlands. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It'd have to be very specific, right? Yeah. Like, it'd have to be in the state of Virginia, where you get an entire country. Virginia is probably like
the same size as the Netherlands, though.
Probably, yeah. Probably a bit bigger.
And it's also just because I feel like technically over these last 10, 11 years, like Holland is a pretty central place. I feel like we could have had an event or two, then it would have been less special. I would have always been happy. But I had to wait so long for this. And I remember when the DreamHack announced, like, DreamHack Rotterdam, I'm like, yay! And they're like, StarCraft, nay. And I'm like, what? Come on! It would have been so cool. So it's just awesome to see everyone here. It makes me really happy.
Yeah. I mean, we got MLG DC, which was apparently terrible. I didn't actually go. But they got Red Bull DC. That was actually really cool.
That was amazing. Yeah, well, the first one was amazing. The second one,
yeah, I remember I went to both, but I don't remember what happened in either one, actually.
The second one was more like the Archon tour.
Oh, that's what it was? Okay, yeah, that's right.
And I had a little hosting meltdown, so.
Oh, did you? Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It was hard.
Whoops. Yeah.
Now, the first one was legendary with the beautiful pulses. I absolutely love that. And I think they've done a great job here as well. I don't know how much you guys have truly seen at home, but I know over the next few days they're going to show you guys more and more. But I'm looking at I want to say 14 feet teddy bear on my right.
Yeah.
I'm looking at beautiful Zealot balloons on the left. They've actually done an amazing job. Even Blue, the TeamLiquid mascot, has been turned into balloons. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's very adorable.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys get to see everything they've done. We do have another Zealot opener here, and well, this happened previously, and Maru was opening up with a decent number of it was 2 Reapers. And he was looking for it by the looks of it, right? So it was caught and then recalled. It was kind of awkward. Doesn't get caught this time, but it also isn't adding anything quite yet. But with herO once again going for Stalkers, is he going to go across the map and try and bust through that main base, or the natural rather, since there's not going to be a bunker quite yet?
And there is a little bit of a ramp going into the natural here, so you probably want to be a bit more careful. And I guess we didn't make a Zealot this time. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
so.
sorry. It's on the bottom side. Yeah, it's all about avoiding the Reaper then, right? Because the Reaper has a lot of micro potential against the Zealot. Well, if you think back to the GSL Codex finals, a single Marine has a lot less. All right, so Widowmine, Medevac, there is potential.
So the Zealot's not going to hit the timing to actually stop the command center by the looks of it. Kind of sucks. Like that would be the ideal scenario if the Zealot went in faster, but oh well.
There were 2 Marines there as well, right? It'd be kind of difficult without Stalker backup.
Yeah, you'd have to like sack the Zealot basically to get the SCV, and then maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't.
It's like 1 SCV 1 time.
Yeah.
There's always this moment where like the final Zealot blade is in the air and it's like, will the SCV get out of range or not?
Yeah. I think this is something that herO has done often enough. Maru is just preparing for it. The Widowmines are already burrowed. Is Zealot's going to reveal the Widowmines?
There's one more.
Yeah, there's one more. Very similar to what's game number 2.
Oh, and this is cute as well. I love that. He knows that this Widowmine defensively is not going to be very useful in the next 30 seconds. You also don't want to pick off both, because if the Stalkers then take another sneak peek and that line doesn't show up anymore, then you know that your Marines are going to be in trouble. I love this decision by Maru.
Yeah, so Maru, I mean, last time he did this, he did eventually go back for the second Widowmine, and then went for a Widowmine drop that didn't work initially. But this time around, you might be hoping that herO overstays his welcome on the side of the map, doesn't come back as fast as he should. As Stalker's actually almost timed us out perfectly, but missing that last shot.
Retarget all day.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, actually shot at a Stalker, and the Stalkers could have very well been near probes, right? Can we take a look at if any probes went down? Ooh, okay, it didn't, and that's sick. But to be honest, that's crazy that a Widowmine shot from there on the Stalkers, because very often you put your probes on that mineral patch. That could have been an absolute disaster. we didn't see it because we were watching first-person view of Maru, but herO very happy that he didn't stack his probes there, because that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, at least Maru got that one Stalker that was just seconds before Blink was done, unfortunately, but didn't get the big pop-off on the probes. So herO, he's been going into Charge and Storm often enough in this best of 5, but now doing off of 2 bases with the Warp Prism as well. So that was one of the awkward things about was the game number 3, the one that Maru finally was able to put a point on the board, was that he didn't really have that Warp Prism to go for any counter. He couldn't actually ferry around his Storms. Here we have a very dedicated attack that maybe Maru isn't expecting. He might just be going for the old, like, well, third base, and then I got to worry about this.
And this single Widowmine drop that's heading towards the main base, like since herO is playing a much less economical game, he cannot afford to lose any workers. That Nexus is very late compared to the Nexus that they normally build, and just losing 6 or 7 workers here would be a straight up disaster. And if herO doesn't pull the probes, Maru will find the right probe to fire at. I'm then certain about that. We have a little bit of picture-in-picture. Stalkers in the back of the natural. Well, Maru's shot is decent.
Yeah.
3 workers, I believe.
That's actually one of those scenarios where it's better that maybe that he didn't. He never went back to look, so he didn't pull them and make it even worse. Yeah, he was focusing a lot on his Stalkers, so losing 3 probes. I could have gone so much worse. Yeah. And actually still in line with what herO is maybe thinking of doing. I still have some hopes for it, right? A little bit of Stalker micro to kill some SCVs. That's always nice. But then also, I think kind of keeping up appearances to what he's done previously, which again goes off a faster third Nexus. So I think we did have Maru just pick up 2 medevacs. He did indeed. Going totally unscouted so far to the top left. I mean, either Widowmine medevac is kind of even like... Yeah, it's like an advanced scout. Like it knows something's going up there. This could also be very bad for herO.
This is very cool that he sends the Raven in ahead, right? Just to see if there's an observer. Obviously knows where things went wrong and inside and out. We're going to have a couple of big storm drops on the SCVs. 9 SCVs in total going down. But that also means that you don't have those storms defensively. And this double drop adds. We have a Widowmine drop as well. There's so much happening right now. It's do or die for both players. Tournament life is on the line here at TSL 9. I absolutely love this for Maru though, because this Terran army is terrifying, and we're storming our own workers now. Triple all of the turret going down to protect the remaining bio units. Maru is all over herO here in game 5.
Yeah, this actually looks like it might just be it for herO. He is all over the place. Recall already used. Third Nexus gonna go down. No contest there. Not there's not many probes to begin with, which is also a bad sign. And herO just has to hope for one heck of a defensive engagement into an immediate counterattack to actually have any hopes in this game. Archon coming awkwardly from across field. shield, not able to do very much. Shield Body Overcharge will cover the natural for a little while, but against the full might of Maru's army, it is not going to be enough. 120 supply, 240. Maru gets his revenge on herO and is going to advance on in TSL 9.
The reverse sweep too. First game looked a little hopeless. Second game looked a lot better. There was potential there for Maru, but he wasn't quite able to connect the dots properly. Game 3, 4, and 5 though, Maru played as great as we know he can do in any given matchup. We often talk about his TVT, but his TVP, if he's feeling it, if the micro is on point, he is still unstoppable, and that is fantastic news for Maru that he will advance. Obviously a big shame for herO. It really sucks that we have to say goodbye to him so early in this tournament, but yeah, they both knew it. This was a bit of a nightmare matchup in the lower bracket round 3.
Yeah, what a very, very tough matchup to be presented with in the lower brackets. Fortunately, there's still a lot of fun to be had in the facility and around this area too. It's really awesome. So herO shouldn't be bored or anything, but it does suck. He was in such a powerful position, up 2-0. Still a couple of good moments, and I'd say game 3 and 4. Game 5, I mean, obviously there's potential for the first 6 or 7 minutes, but once those double drops went out and then the storms came in, it was like, well, yeah, what does he have? There's really no finagling yourself out of that position for herO. Very limited in options, so yeah, pretty easy end to that one.
And since herO tacks up into Storm so quickly, he doesn't have a crazy amount of regular units, right?
Yeah.
So once those units all unload in its main base and all the turrets go down, that's a disaster. You barely win that fight, like no matter how you engage. Well, of course, it's a night and day difference. If you have 5 Stalkers on the edge of your main base and you push the Medevacs back, then the Medevacs are forced to unload somewhere on the low ground. Then it will be a completely different game. But Maru knew exactly what he wanted, and I absolutely love that Raven leading the charge, just to make damn sure there is no observer catching a little glimpse of that double drop, because if that wouldn't have happened in game 2, that could have very well been his game. Well, Zamigrab, I think I speak for both of us when I say we absolutely love this series. But now it's time to listen to some nerds who truly know StarCraft 2, okay? We have to know our place in life. I'm going to toss it over to Lambo and Harstem to give you guys a little bit of breakdown of that amazing TVP.
All right, everyone, welcome to the analyst desk. I'm joined here by Lambo, and we truly do know a lot about StarCraft, and we'll try our absolute best, Kev, to make it understandable for people like you as well. So we saw a really sick series, and let's just hop straight away into the first game on Stargazers, where we saw a bit of I think this was a very important moment where the Hellion Scout does not really manage to get any info whatsoever on the wall, and also doesn't really manage to stay alive to later on get a scout on what type of build order it is. Because of that, Maru decides to move out across the map against a 4-gate blink, and despite having pretty good control with the Marines, some good focus fire, there's simply too many units, and I mean, herO is quick enough to defend something like this. If you have a 5 to 6 unit lead like he did in this case, just goes for a relatively simple counter-attack, and this is basically a default build order win in my mind.
Yeah, it was pretty much a default win. You could also see how confident herO was once he saw the build order that he was going up against. He just blinked straight up in. And here we're into the second game. This one, I think the series heated up quite a bit here. So the initial Reaper harass went quite okay for Maru, obviously opting for the 2-gas build this time around. So opting for a little bit of more of an aggressive opener. He also scouted a little bit with it. So he gets a bunch of damage done here, and now we saw where herO actually intercepted 2 of the Medevacs. That was really important. If those get there, together with the Raven, Maru was actually in a really fantastic position. He was already up in supply at that point, and here he keeps pressuring. I think herO got a little bit lucky that Maru actually kept all of his tanks alive. Can we pause here for a second? So at this moment in time, Maru actually had his army split, and herO overreacted to the army at the top left. I think herO at this point thought that Maru's most of his forces were at the top left, and now Maru starts attacking in towards herO's own third base. So now we can let it run, and we see how perfectly herO basically responds to it. So herO basically is moving his entire army towards the left side of the map. Now he realizes, okay, there's something else going on, but Maru already stimming into the army. He recalls just enough units to flank with the disruptors to force the pickup, and even though Maru saw it with the scan, he doesn't quite get out in time with all of his units. This was, I think, the very first big moment where herO takes a supply lead, and at the same time, we still see this from herO's POV. It's usually very difficult to push into this area, but since his army's supply lead is just that big, he basically pushes his way through, and Maru is still a little bit missplit. At this point in the game, he still had army towards the left, and that was enough for herO to push through.
Yeah, then in the third game we had a bit of a surprise Phoenix harass, taking out, well, 7 SCVs I believe it was, putting herO in an absolutely fantastic position, and in my mind this game was pretty much over and the series should have been 3-0. Could we pause here for a second? Because I think this was really important. Not so much this fight, but this general position was really cool. We see Maru set up over here with a lot of mines and kind of camping this general area. And what that allows for the Terran player is that A, the Phoenixes cannot harass the other side of the map, and B, it is really difficult for the Protoss player as well to tech up to any unit of importance, like Disruptor or Colossi. So TOS is going to be stuck on this Templar tech with charge lots for a very long time, which scales very well once you start fighting against Ghost. And we can let it run again. Like these type of fights, eventually some of the mines will get cleaned up. But I think Maru's overall trades here were fine in the end. He splits the mines well. And then we get this fight where, well, you just have this one EMP. Because there's no Disruptor, there's no Colossi. The moment storms aren't available, this type of bio army with Ghost and even a couple of mines still in there is just way too strong.
Yeah, and here we already run into game 4. So that EMP definitely game deciding. 5-5 Templars only getting off a single storm. And here, the early game, not much happened. Maru got a couple of workers, and then there was Banshees here. He didn't quite see the fact that there was no observer. We're just skimming over it, and we're straight into 40 minutes, because after that, nothing really happened until this very moment, where we can see from herO, he actually has only 3 Disruptors worth of AoE, and he has an High Templar. And he just gets collapsed on by Maru. And that Maru really saw the weakness of herO's army. He was very high in worker count, and he had Tempest as well, which don't really fight well. So now we can see it from Maru's army. So instead of just camping like he usually does behind the Liberators and then counterattacking, he took his entire army, collapsed on herO, and because herO's effective army supply during a fight basically relies on the cannons, the batteries, the kiting ability of Storm and the Disruptors, Maru recognized that and just jumped herO's army and took a perfect fight. And took a relatively easy late game win against him.
Yeah, then in this game, honestly, we had a small Widowmine drop initially, and then Maru just gets ahead in supply. It's really important for herO to get some type of map vision, because the moment you're going for a Storm 2-base opener, you just need to have units in positions. You can't allow a drop to unload in your main base. The moment it happens, well, Maru just gets to push across the map. From here on out, honestly, not much matters anymore. I mean, you literally could put a bronze player in charge of Maru's army. At that point, he's up 40 supply. Pretty sure it would have been fine, Lambo.
I kind of doubt that one, but yeah, game 1 and 5, definitely the more one-sided ones. I really like the play overall. herO really showed that he knew when to tech up and still be safe. So he always had like a maximum amount of tech. He even recognized the moment Maru sat there to instantly tech up to Tempest, and he gave it his all. And sadly, he's already out. He is a great player, also the current GSL champion.
Yeah.
But I think we have a Ravi ready with a 4-time GSL champion. Oh, never mind.
We don't have Ravi ready with the 4-time GSL champion.
Okay. So apparently Maru's not quite ready yet. But yeah, what did you think overall of Maru's playstyle here? I know he opened a lot of 2-gas against herO. Do you think that's just generally good, or?
Yeah, I think generally it's quite good against herO. herO's a player that likes to skip scouts. We saw him no scout 2 of the games and then open up with a quick Zealot. 2-gas openers are fairly good against that, because you have the Reaper, you have a lot of units behind that, tech units from the factory relatively quick as well. So I like that a lot. The Zealot is a big investment, and often after the early game, we actually saw Maru in a pretty decent position, like even on the inside and out game. If that drop that doesn't get called on the left side, felt like there was a lot of opportunities there for Maru that, well, he didn't really manage to take. And herO is very resilient in that type of game. The moment he gets that first AoE out, most of the time with Storm, he feels very difficult to kill. And I think Maru kind of realized that on Data C and started playing a little bit slower.
Exactly. I liked seeing that develop, because herO basically, yeah, he always cuts workers, he plays it very safe, and Maru recognized, okay, I just can't kill this guy, so let's just play a little bit more passive, get up my own tech units, and then try to play from there. And I think it worked quite well. Honestly, it was, yeah, inside and out, probably my favorite moment when they split up the army. I think if Maru was a little bit more active there on the left side, as he recalled, maybe he could have done some damage there, and we would have been in for a little bit more of a scrappy fight. But yeah, I have the word that Maru is ready now together with Ravi, so let's hear what the winner of this match has to say.
Well, thank you guys so much. We are now here with Maru. We did manage to find him, and big congratulations to you, Maru. First of all, I want to ask, how does it feel to get the revenge for the GSL Finals?
네, 먼저 승리 축하하고요. 일단 GSL 결승전 복수를 한 소감이 어떤가요? 솔직히 2대 0일 때 마음 좀 비우고 했는데 그래가지고 편하게 해서 다행인 것 같고 또 이번까지 지면은 완전히 상성이 될 것 같아서 좀 열심히 했는데 다행인 것 같아요.
Yeah, when he was down 0-2, he says that he actually, he sort of lost hope, and but actually that sort of worked out because he played without any expectations. He played comfortably, and that let him come back and win. And honestly, like if he had lost this one too, it would have felt like here had become a hard counter to him. So it's good that he won here.
Yeah, when you were down 0-2, what kind of was crossing your mind on how you wanted to change how you were playing in the series? Like, what was going through your mind on how to change the momentum?
0대 2로 뒤질 때 어떻게 해야지 다시 좀 주도권을 잡을 수 있다, 뭐 전략을 바꿔야겠다, 어떤 생각했나요?
뭐 그런 생각은 딱히 안 했고 그냥 운영만 가면은 할만하겠다 생각해가지고 좀 급하게 안 했던 것 같아요.
Yeah, he says that he actually didn't think about it in such like complicated terms. It was more that, hey, as long as I can play macro games, I should be able to win. So his mindset was just like, let's just take it slow.
Well, it worked out well. I want to say congratulations on that. Your next opponent is either going to be Gumiho or Beyond. Do you have any preferences on either one of them?
네, 다음 상대가 고병재 선수 또는 변현우 선수인데 둘 중에 뭐 상대하고 싶은 선수가 있나요? 누가 더 상대하기 좀 용이할까요?
딱히 태태전은 좀 운도 필요하고 실력 싸움인 것 같아가지고 누가 올라와도 똑같을 것 같아요 태태전.
Yeah, he says that TVT, well, he says it's a lot of luck, and then he said it was a lot of skill, so I guess he's saying it's both. But yeah, but he says because of those factors, it doesn't really matter. It comes up, it's kind of similar.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much, Maru. And again, congratulations. Guys, we're going to be heading to a short break before we get ready for our next wonderful series, so don't go anywhere. You're watching Shopify TSL 9.